you're hearing stories of women in labor being turned away. Because somehow being in labor is not an emergency. Wow, okay. Politicians' foolery, like who flies an expensive jet when people can barely afford food? What is that? Hey folks, how you doing? Long time no see, right? I have pumped myself up to do a couple of videos while I have the energy and motivation and inspiration, because we all know during this season energy levels come and go. So I'm having a good energy day. I'm even having, I don't know if you guys know about some of these snacks. Sis, Rusty, this is a almond and apricot snack bar from Healthy You, having a little bit of tea, preparing to moderate a webinar in about just under 2 hours, and share 5 things on my mind. Oh, and I decided to also doll myself up beyond, get dressed up, get dolled up, and just, you can't really see the complete beauty of this top because I should have picked a better sitting position, but my home studio needs a lot of help. I need to figure out the dimensions, a proper stand for my ring light, a tripod for my camera, so I'm still makeshifting it, so please bear with me. Just before I begin that, want to check in and find out if you're all okay, if you're staying safe. I know it's such an uncertain time for everyone, and send me a comment down below on exactly where you're at with your thoughts, what you're processing. My heart goes out to anyone who's been affected by COVID-19, anybody you know or somebody who's in your life. I'm really sorry that you've been affected, and there's been so much loss, and I'm coming to that in just a bit. So the first thing on my mind is something that you've probably seen me share on my channel, which is Inua Dada Voices, a series that's going to be long-term and capturing the voices largely of girls and women, some boys and men, especially because if we're going to Inua Dada, then we have to Inua her entire support system, and it includes everybody who's in her life and her community. But Inua Dada Voice is essentially supposed to be that platform that allows them to share their story, them to share their truth and their recommendations and what intervention looks like for them. And the first series we're starting with is teen pregnancy, because this whole issue blew up, right? I think sometime in June it really came to the front of the news headlines, and it was a massive topic of debate. And it's not to say we haven't been here before. There seem to be these cycles usually towards the end of the year, and I think we saw that towards the end of 2019 or 2018, when there were girls having to sit their exams just after having a baby, which to this day blows my mind and breaks a certain part of me. And so we have this cycle where we come back, and once there's a surge in numbers, or once it's being brought to our attention, we're panicking, we're agitated, we're frustrated, we're confused, we're angry. And I didn't want to be reactive. I, first of all, was offline in terms of participating on social media. There were so many reasons I didn't want to be reactive. One of them was to just kind of dial it back and go beyond the debates and the conversations. And those are all still very necessary, but I really wanted to try and understand the root cause, which may sound like an obvious. I think we're all trying to. Could be the journalist in me, could be the curious person in me, could be the mother in me, the founder of Inua Dada in me that just wanted to hear from these girls, from their families, from their social workers. And what I learned was incredibly shocking, incredibly saddening, because you do have girls who have been defiled. You've got little girls, 11, 12, 13 years old, who've been defiled and fall pregnant. And I don't know that there's any part of me yet that has processed the kind of trauma somebody is dealing with when you're defiled as a child and then you have to bring a child into the world. I cannot begin to process that trauma, and even worse if she doesn't have a support system. And for some reason, it always gets me choked up, because it's so wrong. A child having a child, you think about decades ago when there was some allowance for child marriage in the medieval times, for example, but we're now aware of how detrimental that is. It's wrong, it's a crime. This is defilement, and it should be treated as a crime. This is a child. Their child who's coming into the world will adapt this pattern of rejection and hopelessness and anger. And so you've got 2 children here whose lives are compromised. And then you have the girls were a little older in some cases, and from what I'm learning, some of them choose to get pregnant because they feel like it's a quote-unquote ticket out of poverty, especially if the father is a little older and has a little bit of money. But that's still a child having a child. If you're 15, 16, 17, you're still a child, you know. Some laws may say differently, some opinions may say differently, but essentially you should still be allowed a chance to fully explore the options that you have in life, if you're fortunate enough to have that. And I'm really talking about girls who do not come from backgrounds that have the word fortunate or privilege or platform in them. You know, so you've got all these dynamics that lead to teen pregnancy, and another one which is soliciting sex in order to have a little income, to buy sanitary products, to buy food, to help your family, because you don't want it all to fall on your mother or your father, but you're still a child, you know? Those are the different narratives that I think I was picking up, and you'll begin to see the conversations we're having. And Plan International helped us source some of these beneficiaries. We're also hoping to get a teen dad. There was one that was really willing to come forward, and we were going to censor him and everything, but his family refused, because it's important to get the boy's perspective as well. And so that's the first thing on my mind, is really trying to, I guess, find hope within this very, very sad and heavy issue of teen pregnancy, and how and why we are letting perpetrators roam free. We have to see, especially the men who are defiling, we have to see them as full-on criminals who deserve the harshest sentencing, the harshest. But I don't know that we've shown them that, and that's why they continue to terrorize young girls and young children. And so there's a justice gap, there's an accountability gap, and I'm hoping that through this series and through a lot of the other conversations that have been had, whether on TV or wherever else it is, that we'll be able to identify these gaps. This is going to be a long 5 things on my mind. Black women, women of color, but focusing on Black women taking up spaces, right? Whether it's in activism, entrepreneurship. It's not that we haven't, we've always had these spaces, but I suppose we are all now aware that 2020 is also the year of the reckoning, where a lot of injustices are being called out. And one of those is the injustices that a lot of women of color face when they're trying to progress or have access to the same privileges and rights that white women will have access to. And so I wanted to quickly highlight some of the women who, for me, are incredibly inspiring, incredibly bold, incredibly unapologetic, and really shifting the way we need to be having these conversations. And I'm gonna put their images out here as I mention them. The first one is Myriam Sidibe, and may I please hold up Myriam's book? There we go. Myriam's book is called Brands on a Mission. Myriam is a friend of mine, the co-founder of Global Hand Washing Day, has a PhD in hand washing, and I think a lot of you were introduced to her by CS Mutahi Kagwe when he kind of brought her right into a press briefing. She has single-handedly, in many ways, changed behavior in corporate, and having corporates have a more social justice or purpose-driven angle to the way they do business. And that's essentially what her book is about. I'm going to link below Myriam's handle and Brands on a Mission's handle so that you can find out more about it. So Myriam, for me, is a woman taking up incredible space and owning that space. And she's very progressive, really smart, Black African woman, and she's a pioneer in this space. The other one is Nimco Ali, who is an FGM survivor based in Britain, and has used her voice to champion for justice for victims of FGM. She's unapologetic. I'm so honored to be serving as one of the advisors on the Five Foundation, which is the foundation she co-founded to fight these injustices. And she's also been very vocal about donor funding practices needing to change. The third woman who I feel is doing incredible work is based out of LA. She's called Chelsea Von Chaz. She's a menstrual health champion, founder of Happy Period, and Chelsea and I met online. We do the same kind of work where we kind of amplify messaging around menstrual equality and menstrual justice. She fights tirelessly to make sure that grassroots movements are put front and center, and is urging everybody to support them and to in her words, and I did a phone interview with her, which I'm going to insert in this other piece that I'll do separately. She says, the organizations that are monopolizing the movement need to step aside or get out of the way and allow the grassroots movements to come up. And so because of that, I think she's great. The fourth thing on my mind is dealing with grief and loss during this time. I feel like each and every single person, I should say confidently, almost every person on the planet right now has experienced some kind of loss or grief or trauma based on what's happened with COVID-19. And it could be the loss of a person, the loss of a business, the loss of ambition, the loss of the fight to win and the fight to keep going. And the trauma of constantly being fed all the news headlines of people dying or people losing jobs, people, I think you know what I'm trying to say, and I'm human, and I think there's a part of me that was really trying to process it all. And so I think what I want to say about this is, you don't need permission, or you don't need a formula when it comes to how to grieve and how to feel loss. I think go ahead and feel it. We can't keep canceling people because they're trying to ask questions, and cancel culture is so toxic and so rife, especially on Twitter right now. And you have to be very careful not to get caught up in it, because whatever you say will be challenged. I think my advice is do the best you can in terms of researching before you post, or post at your own discretion and at your own risk. And then whatever comes back at you, don't let it pierce your soul, because sometimes people are just projecting. See what you can learn and take away from it, or let it be. And the same thing comes with grieving and with loss. Feel it. We're all allowed to take a minute. Take a minute to slow down. And I know that sounds like a privilege, because right now not everyone can slow down, but if you can, take some time to process it, but do not let it consume you. There's a sense of loss that we all feel collectively, and a sense of trauma that we all feel collectively. And my urging is that you can allow yourself to go through the process without letting it break you. Find a way to cope, find a way to learn how to grieve without falling and crashing and burning. And even if you do crash and burn, my only encouragement to you is to let you know that you're not alone. You literally, for the first time in a long time, this is the most honest statement you can hear from anyone. You're not alone. There's millions of people who want to crash and burn, and who are grieving and who are traumatized. And know that there's a community around you, and I hope that will give you some sense of motivation to come out on the other side. And that brings me to the fourth thing on my mind, which is protect your peace. Woo! Protect your peace. I think it's not like I'm the first person to say this. I believe it's been said before, either by content creators or people, but when I took time off social media in June, and thank you for those of you who checked on me, folks were so worried. I was protecting my peace. Now, I want to put a disclaimer that this fourth thing on my mind, again, may sound like it's coming from a place of privilege. I appreciate that not everybody can do some of the things I did. Social media breaks for me are like going on leave. And I do them about twice a year. Literally, the way you would take 21 days leave in a year. I haven't gone this long before. Usually I'll take about a week or two. This time I took about a month. But guys, all around us every day, every single day, especially now, we're barraged by, like I just mentioned, loss and grief and trauma, politicians' foolery, like who flies an expensive jet when people can barely afford food? What is that? With no remorse or apology, man. God bless the brave. All these trending topics and microaggressions, and the audacity of some people to almost trivialize the fact that people are in some of the toughest spots that they've ever found themselves in, right? You have to protect your peace, and you have to find a way to do it that works for you. Social media breaks. It doesn't mean I don't know what's happening. If I have to catch up on what's trending or read a newspaper or talk to people, then fine. But because I invest so much of my time and energy in this space, it's my workspace, I also need to scale back. You can't scale up if you don't scale back. And I know I'm kind of speaking at you as I also share my own learnings and experiences, creating filters for your life. I think of it as you're in this space, and all around you, there's all this energy that says death, destruction, disease, unhappiness. There is still some good in the world, I will say that. But there's all these things coming at you, and honestly, if you're watching this, I'm telling you for free, there is no way you're going to move forward and be motivated if you do not create filters and protect your peace. There's all this around you, and then there's your filter. So all this around you says all of the issues that we're seeing playing out locally and globally. So you say, what have I learned from what I've seen and read today or heard? Okay, what can I do about what I've seen, read, and heard? That's 2. 3, what do I need to release? Remember, you can't overburden yourself, because how are you going to pour from a completely burdened, empty cup? Can a cup be burdened and empty? I think it can be. How are you going to, in my case, how was I going to be a family person if I'm burdened? So I would hear what's going on. What could I do? I respond in the best way I can. If it's a donation I can make, if it's information I can share, and that still fuels my fire towards social justice, and I'll do it because it's something I love, it's something I'm passionate about. And then how do I release? I release it and I say, you know what, God, I'm leaving this to you. It's such a burden. It's so much for me to bear, and I can't actually function if I take this all in. So my filter is, the third thing I'm doing is I'm releasing all this to you. So please create filters. Protect your peace of mind, protect your peace of heart, protect the peace in your home, in your workspace. Everywhere you're moving with your energy. How are you constantly finding ways to protect that energy? That has to be prioritized. Otherwise, you're not able to fully pursue the things that matter to you. There has to be an element of saying, if I want to do more for myself or for my family, my children, my partner, my colleagues, my friends, my parents, whoever it is in your life that is so important, first you have to make good with you. You have to be in a good space. Then you have to protect your energy and peace with every step you take, and create those filters to say, this is the only way I can do it, by being the best version of myself. And that's a lifelong journey, but at least you can be a healthier version of yourself. Whew. Okay. The fifth and final thing is, again, something related to the social justice space, and that's the fact that, COVID-19 has not put sexual reproductive health and rights or a gender lens in its responses. And yes, before you come yelling and saying it's affecting all of us, we're well aware that it's affecting every single person in the world. But we also know that there is a huge amount of burden on women and girls who need to access contraceptives, who need to access maternal care, that are not. And what's happening now, as I mentioned in number 1, we're seeing a rise in teen pregnancies because products like sanitary towels that were available in schools are no longer available. We're also hearing a lot of women and girls having very prolonged, painful periods. Some of which sometimes can be addressed by going on to contraceptives. Again, that's something that somebody has to discuss with their gynecologist. And then a lot of them are scared to go to clinics right now because of all the patients with COVID that are being handled there. Women who are usually able or willing to go for a mammogram are not doing it, or are being turned away because it's not priority. And especially women who need to give birth in a safe space, need to make sure their newborn is being looked after. That is one of the most heartbreaking and agonizing things that is happening, is you're hearing stories of women in labor being turned away because somehow being in labor is not an emergency. Wow. Okay. Woo. Shake off the anger, shake it off. When you're in labor, it's an emergency because you literally have a child that's about to come out of you. I know personally because one of the women that I help, her sister was turned away in labor, and they had to find a private hospital which they could barely afford, which allowed her in, and she literally was on the bed and the baby was just pushed out, and she was so distressed, and we were able to come together and give her some kind of facilitation, at least to pay for the costs of delivery, and that's not something she was able to afford. But all these things make you realize that because this was not thought about, even though we should have learned something from everything that was happening with, Ebola in Sierra Leone and in parts of Africa, we should have learned that you can have another crisis beyond a pandemic, and that's the crisis of women's access to health. Gracia Machel, Melinda Gates, and a lot of other women leaders have published policy papers trying to give recommendations on what governments can do differently. I'll try and link those below because at least it gives a very clear indication of where the gaps are and what can be done, and how we can collectively also raise our voices to say, put our responses to health issues, especially sexual reproductive health and rights, at the center of the responses to COVID-19. So that we don't end up managing, I always say it in quotes because I don't know when we'll ever manage the pandemic, but we don't end up managing this pandemic only to turn around and look at another pandemic exploding, which is the pandemic of women and girls' health rights being compromised to a point where their lives are in danger. There's so many interventions, but they need scalability, they need visibility, they need funding. If we're able to put resources there, we can actually reach more women and girls and find that these numbers go down. So that's the fifth thing on my mind. I don't know how often I'm going to be able to be doing this. I'm not going to lie. I don't want to give any promises, but I do miss doing commentary videos. I love doing them. I love engaging with you on them. So look out for my Inua Dada Voices series. Follow us on Inua Dada and officialjanetboga.com. That's my website. You can find all that information there. And soon, my first time is releasing another series. The book is still not in stores, and the ebook version is coming soon, and I'm really sorry that a lot of people have waited 2-3 months. I'm working on it, but there's also going to be another digital piece on my first time, which I'll be talking about soon. But I'm really excited to be finally bringing it to life because it's been in waiting for about a year. So I think I'm going to end the video there because I am close to doing my webinar, and thank you very much for watching. I know I just touched this. I love these head wraps from Afi Nairobi so much. Decided to put some lipstick for y'all, some earrings, just feeling pretty good today. I guess I will see you back here next time. In the meantime, I'm gonna try and do the video on donor funding practices so that I can give a little bit more context to what I was saying. I'll probably do it in this outfit before my webinar so that I don't forget to do it. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. Bye. Myriam's book is called Brands on a Mission. This book is now available at Textbook Center, and I want you guys to read Myriam's book to understand the resilience of women. I'm going to link below Myriam's handle and Brands on a Mission's handle so that you can find out more about it.